Michael Farrington, thanks very much.
Thank you, John. Well, as John said, my name is Michael Farrington and I represent a political party called Renewa. We are the only 100% pro-life political party in Ireland. No strings, no, absolutely 100%. No ifs, buts, ands or maybes. So that's the political speech over with. With so many eminent speakers here tonight, I was trying to think what to speak about. So I could see there was nobody from a legal background, so I'm going to try and talk a little bit about the legal aspects of this proposed amendment and the resulting effects of it if it is passed. But I was also, funnily enough, lying in bed last night and I remembered about 30 years ago a man called Spike Milligan. And he was on the Late Late Show, and I remember he read a poem. And I remember being absolutely stunned by it, so I Googled it. So I just thought I'd share it with you before I talk about the legal aspects, if you don't mind. I won't read it as well as Spike, but I hope you'll get the message. It's called Unto Us. Somewhere at some time they committed themselves to me, and so I was. Small, but I was. Tiny in shape, lusting to live, I hung in my pulsing cave. Soon they knew of me, my mother, my father. I had no say in my being, I lived on trust and love, though I couldn't think each part of me was saying, a silent, wait for me, I will bring you love. I was taken, blind, naked, defenseless, by the hand of one whose good name was graven on a brass plate in Wimpole Street and dropped on the sterile floor of a foot-operated plastic waste bucket. There was no Queen's Counsel to take my brief. The cot I might have warmed stood in Harrod's shop window. When my passing was told, my father smiled. No grief filled my empty space. My death was celebrated with tickets to see Danny LaRue, who was pretending to be a woman like my mother was. So, I'll talk a little bit about the legal aspects of this. And the Supreme Court decision last month has confirmed that the only rights enjoyed by the unborn children are those contained in Articles 43.3 of the Constitution. No other article in the Constitution confers any rights, directly or indirectly, implied or otherwise, to the unborn child. It is clear, therefore, that what is proposed is very unique. It will be the first time, as far as I'm aware, in human history, that a sovereign people, by secret ballot, will remove the right to life from a cohort of humans simply because of their location in the womb. If the Eighth Amendment is removed, the people will lose for all time their sovereign right to decide on this issue. Power will pass totally to the Oireachtas, who can amend legislation as they deem fit over time. This has been confirmed by the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, who has said publicly that it is impossible to tie the hands of future Dáils in this matter. Likewise, the ridiculous and unconstitutional suggestion from Simon Coveney about introducing 2/3 voting majority, confirming that he does not trust future Dáils on this issue. If the Taoiseach cannot trust politicians, how can we? People rightly say life is not black and white. It's varying shades of grey, and use all sorts of whataboutery to justify abortion in this or that situation. But as far as I am concerned, abortion is black and white. Either we accept that it is morally right to kill a certain cohort of human beings, or we don't. That decision is very stark, and if the yes side win this campaign, it means that it will lead ultimately to one of the most liberal abortion regimes in Ireland, in the world, I beg your pardon. And extreme and all as this proposed legislation is now, can we imagine what future legislation might be like with multiple Ruth Coppingers, Kate O'Connells, Catherine Zappone or Lisa Chambers in the Dáil, all of whom have indicated that even the existing proposed legislation does not go far enough for them. So let's take a little look at the legislation. Under Head 4, which is the risk to the life or health of the mother, it states, "It shall be lawful to carry out a termination of pregnancy in accordance with this head where two medical practitioners certify that in their reasonable opinion, formed in good faith, there's a risk to the life or of serious harm to the health of the pregnant woman. B, the fetus has not reached viability, and C, it is appropriate to carry out the termination of pregnancy in order to avert that risk." So what we're talking about is viability up to 24 weeks, as already been stated here, not 12 weeks. And let's look at that in more detail and ask the question, under what circumstances will abortion up to viability be legal? The answer is, it will be legal where there is a risk to the life or serious harm to the health of the pregnant woman. And this is where it starts to get murky. Now the question becomes, what do they mean by health? So, health is defined as the physical or mental health of the woman. So now we have a situation where it's possible up to 24 weeks to get an abortion where there's a threat to the mental health of the woman. So, why is this so troubling? It's so troubling for a simple reason, and if we look at our closest neighbours in the UK, we can see how the legislation is likely to be applied. There are 7 grounds under UK legislation that abortion is legal. Grounds A to G. In 2016, 97% or 180,794 abortions were carried out under Ground C in the UK. Ground C deals with abortions where there is a threat to the physical or mental health of the woman. Notice the inclusion of mental health, like the proposed Irish legislation. The vast majority of abortions carried out under Ground C alone were reported as being performed because of a risk to the woman's mental health. In conclusion, on this section, the government plans to allow unrestricted abortion based on the proposed legislation. They will also legalise abortion up to viability of 24 weeks where there is a threat to the health of the woman, where health is defined as physical or mental health. So what does that mean? It basically means that any mental health grounds will be allowed. And if we look at what is a report in the Telegraph on a Panorama documentary recently, it was admitted by Anne Furedi, the Chief Executive of the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, who said that pregnant women and doctors actively pretend that the women's mental health is at risk so that they can sign off on abortions without questions being asked. That's what we're facing here. And the chairman of the Royal College of General Practitioners in the UK said a woman simply saying that she did not want to be pregnant now constituted as enough evidence to justify an abortion. That could never happen here, could it? But what did Peter Boylan say? Peter Boylan, the chairman of the Institute of Obstetrics and Gynecologists, has said, "I don't really have a problem with them saying serious risk, because if the woman regards it as serious, then it is. It should be the woman's assessment of the risk that counts." In other words, open door policy, vague mental health grounds, tick the box, and you can get an abortion all the way up to viability. So, the only protection that we have is the 8th Amendment. And we have to keep it. We have to protect life. There's another way that unrestricted abortion can actually come in, apart from the fact that the Dáil will be allowed to legislate for it, and we cannot tie the hands of future Dáils. And that is a possibility of a Roe versus Wade situation arising in Ireland. Now, we know, as a result of the Supreme Court judgment, that the unborn child has absolutely no rights under the Constitution if Article 43.3 is removed. So what's stopping a woman at any point in her pregnancy taking legal action against the state? And if that happens, she can basically argue on privacy or other grounds that she's entitled to an abortion. And her rights to have an abortion is going to supersede any rights that the child has, because the Constitution is going to say that the child has absolutely no rights. So either the Dáil will legislate for even more liberal abortion, or we will have a Roe versus Wade scenario here in Ireland. So I'll finish up by just saying, you know, when we look at the people who are pushing for this within the government, we have Catherine Zappone, a Minister for Children. Now that's an oxymoron if I ever heard one. A self-confessed participant in witchcraft rituals. She wants abortion based on the Canadian model, which is abortion for any reason but no time limits up to birth. We have Richard Bruton, the Minister for Education, with 1,300 classrooms and prefabs throughout the country, but spends his time out campaigning for abortion. We've Owen Harris, the Minister for Housing, with an escalating homeless crisis, and the biggest cohort of which are children aged 0 to 4 years of age, out campaigning for abortion. And as for Minister for Harris, our Minister for Health, who has tweeted approximately 130 times about repealing the 8th Amendment, but only once about the hospital trolley crisis. 200 yards across the road there, I guarantee you tonight, there are old and infirm and sick people lying on trolleys, but Mr. Harris's priority is to bring in abortion. The same Minister for Health has no problem standing shoulder to shoulder with Amnesty Director Colm O'Gorman, who refuses to comply with the law of the land and CEPO rules on foreign donations. Because the people like that, the rules are only for the little people. It doesn't apply to them. And finally, we have our Taoiseach, who is out there actively campaigning so that 20% of the future citizens of this country won't even have the right to be born. They'll be aborted. We, the ordinary people of Ireland, the silent majority, are fed up with the likes of these politicians and the so-called Dublin elite in the media, whether it be radio, television, print or wherever. The champions of crony capitalism, the D4 movers and shakers who are trying to destroy our traditional values and impose their liberal socialist agenda on this country. The 8th Amendment and the implementation of abortion in Ireland is our current big target. And the abortion providers see every single pregnant woman as a potential customer. It's big business. We know by their actions, their lies, their deceit, that we cannot trust politicians. There are a couple of exceptions here tonight, thank God. We people are sovereign on this issue, and we must keep it that way. This is an issue where human rights, religion, science and philosophy all concur. Life begins at conception and should last until natural death. Let this be our line in the sand. Thus far and no further. Let us as a people rediscover our rebel heart. Join the rebellion, vote no.